The parasocial thing is weird just by itself, but there's such an extra layer of parasocial relationship to like another person who has a parasocial relationship to you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I can't remember who I was telling. It might have been Katie, but I think it was someone else. Where it's like, I actually really like it because I'm so bad at like the beginning stages of friendships with new people because I don't like small talk and I don't like superficial stuff. Like, I just want to talk about deep stuff, and that's really awkward for people if you don't know them. And I'm like, it's the best. You get to know somebody online by watching their life. You don't have to say a damn thing. And then, you know, 3 months later, you jump in with them and you just already have a friendship.
Absolutely. I feel the same way.
Listen, I got so excited to see you because, and I had to unceremoniously Katie off. Sorry, Katie, because I just want to talk. Let's just talk. Let's just talk marriage. Let's just talk division of labor.
Let's do it. You know what? My husband's eavesdropping over here, so if we have questions for him too.
Excellent. You know what I was thinking about the other day? This is just husband stuff in general. Is that like I am so glad that I was not dating in the time of Tinder.
Yeah.
I just don't think I
Why
would
why
have.
do you say that?
I just don't think I would have been very good at it. Like I only had my husband is my fourth relationship in my life. Now I had some non-relationships, you know, where the relationship is in your head. Um, but
Yeah.
I I also just never was like confident enough for one night stands, and I despise the like, are we talking, what are we, we're flirting but I don't know what's happening phase. Despise it. I don't know what it is about me. I don't do well with it, and God bless him. After I met my husband, and the next day he called me and he said, "Hi, this is Michael. I would like to take you out on a date for dinner tomorrow night." And I was like, "Thank the Lord, thank you, Jesus," um, because
Was it hard and fast after that?
it was. I just really appreciate someone who will say like, "This is the game I'm playing. Here are like I am interested in you, and we this is a date."
That's really funny that you say that. I knew Jack for a couple of years, and then a friend of his invited me out to a bar, and I was like, "Who's with you?" And he said, "Jack is there," and I was like, "Oh, good." And so I went, and within an hour, I was like, I only think in TikTok sounds now. Yeah, you're coming home with me. And, we've been together for 12 years since that night.
Bless. Somebody asked me in the comments how long I've been married. I've been married. It'll be 8 years in February. I also had I think the guy that I was sort of obsessed with before I met my husband. It was one of those non-relationships, like we were really just having one in my head. Um, and this guy gave me what can only be described as the biggest case of emotional blue balls that you have ever heard in your life, where like they say things that indicate that like you're very special to them and like you're not like anyone else. I mean, I just really vibe with you, but they also like don't date you. And then
That's awful.
if you act like, "Oh, I thought we were something," they're like gaslight you into like, there's always this like, I just hated when men would play this like, "I'm gonna make you feel really special but make sure that I have 100% deniability of like acting like I was interested in you so I don't have to like be held to it." Which I think why it was such a big deal for Michael to call me and be like, "I'd like to take you out on a dinner date tomorrow." I was like, "Fuck it,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Cut the
hallelujah."
bullshit.
So
That's awesome. And 8 years married. How long have you been together?
um 8 years and 10 months.
Amazing. I love that.
Keeping you on the back burner is right. A situationship. Yeah, and here's the thing. This guy told me at one point, like we were hanging out at his house and he was like, he had just, he had like some issues happening, some like mental health issues. And he was like, and I wish that I could act on what I want to act on, but like, I can't bring you into this right now. Like it would just be so selfish of me because of it. Right. So listen,
God.
you guys know 100% you could write the script because, he 100% met someone like 6 months later and then married them.
Of course. Of course. Oh,
it was like, oh,
that
he
is
just
so
didn't like me that much.
manipulative.
He just didn't like me that much.
Oh.
Which, like, I genuinely have no hard feelings because I really think, oh, have you seen the TikTok of the woman that has the song about you just didn't like me that much?
No.
It is brilliant. I love her. I wish I could remember her name, but it was basically like, you didn't plan to ruin my life. You weren't some evil mastermind. Like, you just didn't like me that much.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I've done that to people. I've been on the other side of that. I didn't realize you were sober. I've been sober for 6 years, which means I've been a real dick for half of my marriage. I'm trying to get a read on my husband hearing me say this. He said, which half of the marriage? So I've been a dick the whole time. But yeah, before him, I was a real, like, I probably ruined some lives.
Mm.
How long have you been sober, though?
18 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So when I met my husband, I had 10 years of sobriety. And we were kind of like set up, not on like a blind date, but like we want to introduce you to my friend. We think you'd really like him. And then they told him the same thing. And he was like, yeah, I'm not trying to date anybody. And they were like, oh, actually, we can't tell him because he'll like, won't do it. But they told me that he had 3 years of sobriety. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And then like we dated, we got married, and then like his sobriety date came up and he was like, I have 3 years of sobriety today. And I was like, excuse me, what? Because I never like asked him because they had told me apparently he had 2 years of sobriety when we met and I had 10. And listen, if you are just getting sober, 2 years is so much sobriety. But when you've been sober 10 years and you've seen how many people with 2 years go back out, you're like, no way would I date somebody with 2 years. Like, so it's just literally like the universe's way of just like not letting me know because I probably wouldn't have dated him.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. Because you're right. Like at 6 years, I don't think about my sobriety is a thing, but it's not present for me. I don't drink. My husband has a drink here and then, but like it's not a thing for us. But new sobriety, you're so right, is like fresh. And they say, especially, I don't do AA personally, but
I don't either.
They say in the program, like, don't date for the first year. Just don't do it.
Yeah, thank God.
Oh, wow. That's good. But
he's good nut.
Now 10 years for him?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yes. He's
lovely.
That is
so cool. Yeah, I never see him in the content. I've never seen him. How old are your children or child? How old is
I have two. I have a 20-month-old and I have a 3.5-year-old. And yeah, my husband does not like to be on the internet. So
fair.
You almost will never see him. I think there's like one TikTok where his voice is in it. And one time he said it was okay to put some pictures of him when I was like on our anniversary or something. But yeah. And then yes, we have two daughters who are almost exactly 2 years apart. How many kids do you have?
That's awesome. I have two. They're 5 and 2.5. Almost 2.5. Yeah.
I just this age is going to kill me, I think.
I'm right there with you. It's the 20-month-old is probably a lot, but there's also like so much going on with 3-year-olds.
It's really the talking.
Oh, my 5-year-old doesn't stop talking. ever, not for a second. She's talking 100% of the time.
Lord,
While
Lord, Lord. That's
while we're talking, she's talking.
not what I need to hear.
At least it makes sense now, and she's like referring to things and can interact a lot more, so that's better.
My my oldest, who is like a precious ray of sunlight. She wore her nightgown all day today, and she looked exactly like Wendy from Peter Pan, so we just let her.
Oh.
And she talks. Let me tell you, she talks.
Is she in school or anything, or is she home with you?
She was in school. We recently took them both out of school for a nanny. We just hired a nanny.
Congratulations.
Let me tell you, I told my husband recently. So my husband's an attorney. He is in fairly new, like in his first 2 years of his career at a pretty big law firm, and he's brilliant and works very hard. And I told him, like, I should have done this a long time ago. Like, this is actually the level of support that I need to be sane with the job that you have. But it's taken us so many years of me feeling as though, well, like, I should be able to hold all of this down by myself, and I should be able to do this. And like, and he's a saint, man, but every step of the way, when it was like, maybe I'll put my daughter into a Mother's Day out, and it was like, oh, but I feel guilty because I should really, right? And but every time I just, it makes me sad, because it is 100% true that, like, even if I wasn't working, having a nanny during the day is the level of support that I should be getting with a husband with this demanding of a career.
I am so with you. My husband is the same. Has always worked incredibly long hours, and this summer we got a nanny, and I wasn't working, and we had a nanny a couple days a week. And by the time I went back to working, teaching, I was still so burnt out. Absolutely, we need more help. Everybody needs more help. He needs more help. I need more help. We found a nanny that we loved. My kids are in daycare now, but my God, everybody needs, if they can afford it, if you can't, you gotta find help. You gotta do trade the kids off so someone else can hear them talk.
Well, one reason why we made the switch is because, so I had them both in a little preschool from like 8 to 2, like Monday through Friday, so that I could have the time. And somebody actually said something really sweet on a video the other day when I was talking about why I got a nanny. And they commented and said, you don't have to justify why you have a nanny. You don't have to justify, I got a nanny because now I'm doing some work. Because I have what I call bougie guilt anytime I do something like that. And we had them in school, but what was happening was that, like, they get sick a lot. And then because of COVID, they changed their policy. Like, it used to be like, okay, when the fever's gone, you can go back the next day. And now it's like, when the fever's gone, wait 3 days, then come back. And then every time there was a couple of COVID cases at her school, and they'd shut down for 2 weeks. And
it's brutal.
What it really came down to was, we got this nanny, and now, like, when I needed to leave to go see my mom for her breast cancer surgery, it was like, well, we will ask the nanny if she can stay an hour late till Michael gets home. And it's for the first time in my kid's life, I am not the be all end all first and last line of defense for every childcare need. And that's what I needed. I don't just need time and time autonomy. I need to feel like I can breathe. Like, if something comes up and I want to go out of town on a book tour, or if my mother gets cancer and I need to go see her, like, feeling as though, the entire weight of who is going to take care of these children. So
that's amazing.
Motherhood is hard.
It's so hard. Yeah, it, I recently read, I don't know if you've read it yet. I talk about it a lot, but How We Show Up. It's by Mia Birdsong, and like just hearing her talk about how important having that village is, like something that really stuck out to me was how enriching it is for a child to have an adult who's not their parent talk to them,
Mm-hmm.
because they talk to them like little adults and they value them in a way that's different than the way that we value them. And it's so, and that to me was like a relief that I'm not taking myself away from them. I'm giving them an opportunity to grow and learn and interact in a way that I cannot do for them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my husband just read the book. I read the book. It was like, especially as a white person in this American dream, like living, your husband works long hours and you're doing all of the amazing things and having a career and doing, that's great, but we're by ourselves. And like you said, you're carrying all that load, that mental load, and just knowing you could call someone,
And I
especially during this pandemic. Oh,
the amount of friends that have that I've met that were living in Houston that also didn't have family around, that got pregnant with their second kid and immediately moved home. Just had a friend on Saturday, like my one last friend I had. We went to the zoo and she was like, "Listen, I got to tell you, I'm pregnant again, and we're moving home." She said, "COVID changed everything. I can't do it. It's not enough help. It's not enough support." And she's not the only friend that's done that. It's like they go through it with their first kid and realize, oh my God. And I have said before, and it's not a secret from Michael at all. Like, had I known how difficult it was going to be to raise children without family around, I would not have agreed to move here.
yeah. Yeah. How were you doing it? I mean, other than with the nanny, like how are you surviving?
I'm medicated. No. So
Well, like strangely right now, right?
yeah, strangely right now. Well, so I was a full-time stay-at-home mom with my first daughter, and I was doing like one weekend a month working as at a therapy workshop. And then when I had my second daughter, um 3 weeks later the COVID lockdowns happened. So like my toddler was supposed to be in school. I was supposed to have family come and like stacked up for a long time, and it just all went away. And Michael
Oh,
his job literally 4 months before, so he's working 7 days a week. And for months and months and months, it was me and my newborn and my not even 2-year-old, 12 hours a day inside of our house. Um,
oh,
and I developed really severe postpartum depression. The thing is, though, is I didn't know that I had it because I wasn't sad. I didn't have any like
mm,
feelings about myself. I didn't think I was bad. Like I went completely numb. I became apathetic. I just wanted to check out. I was just basically turning on the TV and just existing all day long. I couldn't make myself get up the couch to do anything. Um, I actually had friends tell me, "You need to call a therapist. You are depressed." Um,
wow.
so I did, and I talked to a therapist for a while, and it was really helpful. And she was the first person to validate, like, this is not sustainable. This is not sustainable. And she was the first one to say, now it's time for you to call a psychiatrist and talk about some meds. And, I was able to, and she was the one who told me, you need to get a break or you're going to break. And when she asked me if I was sleeping well at night, I got very lucky with my second kid who started sleeping through the night at 10 weeks. And
Wow.
because she said, are you sleeping? And I said, thankfully, yes. And she said, okay, then I'm going to let you be for now. But if you had told me you weren't sleeping, I would have recommended you be hospitalized immediately.
Wow.
Like, it got bad. It got to like, one day I walked out of my front door and just started walking.
Oh,
I
geez.
got like a couple blocks. And then I was like, Casey, you have to go back. And it was like, I was very close to like breaking from reality. And then one day, after Michael put the kids to bed, I was like, I got to go get some food. And I got in my car and I went to Whataburger, and I was in the drive-through line. And all of a sudden I was overcome with this urge of like, I got to go. I got to go. And I wanted to get out of the car. I was wearing my pajamas and just start walking. Like I wanted to leave the car and park in the drive-through line and just start walking, just walk into the darkness. I don't know why, but in that moment, it felt like that was the only thing that might bring some relief. But there was like enough of the therapist in me present to go, uh-oh.
Yeah.
And so instead I called somebody and pulled over, and
oh, good.
That's when we came home, talked to my husband. We decided to put the toddler back in full-time school, eventually put the little one in 2 days a week. And by that time, the stuff with my book had taken off. And so there was a little more wiggle room for both of us to be like, okay, let's put them both in school. And I will focus on this other thing that's like really taking off for me, that's fulfilling me, that's like feels really good. And yeah, so that brings us to today. Did you even ask that? Yeah, I don't even know that you
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or tell you my life story.
Yeah, I mean, everything you're saying is so relatable. And it's amazing, like that feeling of wanting to get away or disappear. It's like I feel every time I talk about it on here or with my friends, or even like, someone at the coffee shop asked me like, "How are you, Laura?" And I was like, not great. Things are not good. Yeah. It's amazing. It just feels like a collective, like, on TikTok, we're always talking about trauma, but parenting during this pandemic truly has been traumatic. Like all of the things, like you said, you expected your parents to come in and to have bubbles in music class and out going to the library. And now it's like all we do is Saturdays and Sundays we go and drive around, and we go to McDonald's and get coffee. We go feed the ducks at the park. It's like the same 5 things. And it's awesome and it's great. And we found a groove, but this is not what we signed up for. Nobody signed up for this.
Did you see I didn't read the article. I just saw the title, but the New York Times had an article front page that said the primal scream of mothers. It gives me goosebumps just that was the headline, and it was about that like we're not okay and we're not being talked about. I mean, it's been so traumatizing, and even I, with all of the therapy knowledge, like underestimate how long the effects are going to be and how long it's going to take to recover from the burnout. So
that's the right word for it. The other book my husband and I are both reading right now is Laziness Does Not Exist by Devin Price.
Yeah, I have it.
And it just the way they immediately talk about what burnout looks like. And I am not trained. I don't know. I didn't know what it looked like. And, I left my job, I think 3 or 4 weeks, I don't know. It's been a while, 4 weeks ago, maybe now. And I never thought I would be a statistic. I never thought I'd be a burnout case. And I'm realizing it was just layers and layers of parenting and teaching. And it's amazing. The domestic burnout that we're all facing, it's just so heavy.
Well, and when you read about burnout, like I was reading the World Health Organization, and I'm going down the list of the symptoms, and I'm like, oh my God, finally an answer. And then at the end, it says, this cannot be applied to non-occupational scenarios. Like they're saying like burnout is specifically a career thing, which was like, it's just not true. Like it is 100% happening to mothers.
Yeah. I can't
mothers
believe that.
specifically. And it just helped me feel like I wasn't crazy. I think that fear that comes up in your mind when you find yourself unable to engage and snapping and screaming and being mean and wanting to run out the front door, that fear in your head of, do I not want to be a mom? Is that what's wrong with me?
Oh yeah.
Is crippling.
Yeah. Oh man, absolutely. It really is. And then you feel guilty and all of this pressure, like you said just the other day, when you were on a walk. And that's my thing. I remember when the lockdown hit, it was like 3 weeks in, and I was still working full time, and I had a 9 month old and a 3.5 year old, kind of, very similar shoes. And they were destroying the house. It felt like there was no end in sight. And finally, one Sunday, my husband was home with the kids, and I was like, I'm going on a bike ride. I just went on a bike ride, put headphones in, and sobbed, like heaved.
Mm-hmm.
I have not cried that hard ever. And I just feeling the wind and just being like, why do I need this so badly? And then feeling bad that I didn't want to be around my children for a little bit. And just the spinning we're all going through.
Well, yeah, one of the really hard ones for me was thinking I was a really good mom to one kid. Maybe I'm not cut out to be a good mom to two. Like, maybe that was my mistake. Maybe I really am just inherently not capable of being a kind and good mom. And I think about all the time, like, every time I do something mean, and I'm not talking about like, oh, I yelled. I'm talking about like screaming as loud as I can, get away from me, I don't want to see you. And she's like 3. And then immediately I go to like, she's going to be sitting in a therapist office talking about how her mother made her feel unloved.
Oh, every day. It's so validating to hear other people say it out loud.
And then she'll go on the internet, and this part's like totally secondary, but it's like, and then there'll be an expose about how domestic blisters children, all grown up, tells the ugly truth behind how she was actually a shit parent, even though she was so kind to everyone on the internet.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm always telling my therapist, I'm like, I'm a fraud. I'm a total fraud. Like I don't know. And then I come on here and I see these gentle parents, and they make it look so easy. And I just told, did you see the video the other day of the dad who was like, I need you to stop talking until bedtime. Just stop talking. And he's like, oh, are you, just kidding. No. It's like, oh, are dealing with this.
Yes. You know, and I finally put my finger on it the other day. Like, whenever I post my like messy house cleanups, the comment that I get on every single one of them is like, why don't you teach your kids to clean up after themselves? And number one, when I first started posting these, my children were like literal infants. So first of all, go fuck yourself, Debbie, for that one. Or not, I don't know why I just said Debbie. That's my mother-in-law's name. She's the kindest person ever. That's not a joke. Like Becky. I think I meant to say Becky. But the other part, there's like this, I don't want to say it's like ableism, but like, do people not realize how much energy and effort it takes to teach a young child to pick up toys? To teach them, like, if I'm almost at my breaking point, like, and I'm just doing what I can to like make a space functional, the last thing I need is someone heaping the additional guilt of, well, a good mom would have taught their child how to do this by now. And it's like, I'm just trying to keep it together. I don't have the extra energy to teach my child how to make fucking avocado toast at a play kitchen. Like, don't get me wrong. I love those videos of the little Montessori kids that like pick their own clothes and make themselves bruschetta. Like, it's awesome. But I feel like people Like, if I gave my children running water, access to running water, like, do you guys get that they're going to turn the running water on the floor about 8,000 times before they learn not to? And I'm not saying, like, it's not worth it. Like, obviously, like, you have to, like, you know, that you have to, like, embrace how much mess up there's going to be to, like, teach your kid to be independent. So I'm not saying, like, we don't have a responsibility to do that. I'm just saying, like, when somebody is talking about being massively depressed and just trying to keep things together, like, people always say teach your kids to clean up. Like, that's the solution. No, honey, that's the job.
Right.
That's work.
Right. Yeah, my own kid gets her own water now, and it's a nightmare because every time she pulls the handle down, and then you have to be like, "Oh, okay, all done." She goes, "No, mommy, no." And like, if you get her an ice cube, she like wants to shake the water.
Yes. And I'm doing it. Like, but I'm doing it now because I'm actually getting a little bit of relief. Like, I'm getting a little more capacity, so I can actually tolerate how much, you know, she's going to dump an entire thing of glitter on the floor before she learns to play with her own art supply. Like, one day she'll be a kid that, like, goes to her little art supplies and pulls out her art supplies and does art and puts it back. That's fine. But it's going to be like 3 years of dumping everything on the ground before then. And now I have that capacity, but I just outright refused to feel guilty about the fact that my kid's not making their own avocado toast or picking up their own toys when they were literally under the age of 2, when I'm just trying to keep it together.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Have the patience it takes to like teaching your kid to put their own coat on.
Ugh.
Or
yes,
right now we have 2 who want to buckle themselves into the car.
Yeah.
And that's so annoying. It's so great. Now the 5-year-old can do it for herself, but it's a lot.
So here's a question. How did you get to be such a badass about division of labor in the home?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think it's so many things. I know I talk about this book all the time. Fair Play changed my life. It's awesome. Everyone needs to read it. But also just, I think I had to go through the things that you're talking about, like losing myself in parenthood, and not knowing who I was, or like, what is my personality? What are my interests? What would I even do if I had the time or space to do things? And once I realized and gave myself the space, it's like I gave myself the space first, and then I followed up with filling it. I had to have the space first. And thankfully I have a partner who is like, I want to be an active partner in this relationship. Let's figure out a method that works. And I am finally going through my ADHD evaluation, but there's definitely some neurodivergence and executive functioning stuff happening in this house. So what was it was like totally mind blowing to have a method that it was, what do they say? A paradigm shift. So yeah, now we're like, okay, this task is yours and this one's yours. It just clicked. It clicked, and now I'm like preaching the gospel of
Fair Play.
I have the book. Yeah.
I haven't read it yet. I have the book and the cards. So the game changer one for me, have you heard of or read How Not to Hate Your Husband After Kids?
So many people have recommended it, and I haven't read it. Should I read it?
Yes. So I read it while breastfeeding, my first. And I was like, oh my God. Because she does a brilliant idea of basically saying, like, here are the issues. But she also presents it in a way where it's like, let's put it this way. It's not helpful for me to read a book about what my husband should be doing because I don't have control over his behavior. So she writes it about, like, here's what you can control. And not saying, like, it's not about, like, whose fault is it or who should be making the changes, but it's like, okay, at the end of the day, like, these are the things you deserve as a person and as a partner. And here are the ways that you might be getting in your own way. She talks about maternal gatekeeping and not being willing to rest and things like that. And then she talks about like how you approach those conversations with your spouse and how you have boundaries. And so I thought I appreciated the approach because as a therapist, you know, it's one thing to talk about like what people should be doing and what a good partnership should look like. But then when you actually get a person in front of you on the couch and it's like, it doesn't help them to know what their partner should be doing. They know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're like, now what do I do? And she had this approach that was super helpful for me because where my mind went, where she's like, okay, maybe the issue isn't always that like your husband is taking like 45-minute shits. Like, so there's two ways you could approach that. One is like, you could tell him stop and you shouldn't do that and you need to da, da, da. She was like, or you could just go take a 45-minute shit. Why aren't you taking a 45-minute shit? Like,
I love that.
And so that to me helped me work through how am I getting in my own way so that I could have those conversations.
Yeah.
Right? Because why am I rushing through? And I had this like life-changing morning one time where like, because you're the one that's with the kid all the time, like going from like that single frame of mind of like, we can wake up and then we can figure out when we're going to go and what we're going to do, to like a child who naps 3 times a day. You go from like, okay, we have to have a plan. Like we need to be up at 7, breakfast at 7:30. We'll be out the door at this time. And I think that, and I truly believe I'm married to a saint. Like he is the kindest, most wonderful, smart man. But like, he also didn't spend every second of the day with our kids when they were first born. And so like, it took him longer. But let's just say this. He was on his own journey of adjusting to what it meant to be a parent. And it was different than mine because I got the crash course. I had the immersion course. He had the distance learning. Right? And one day I wanted to go look at a car and I was like, okay, like we need to leave at this time. And I woke up that morning and I did not wake him up and I did not remind him. And he woke up and was like, okay, I'm going to jump in the shower. And I was like, okay, I'm leaving. And I just did my morning with 0 resentment. It was not a punishment of, I know what time I need to leave the house with this child to go and test drive this new car so that I can be back, so that they can nap, so that I can sleep tonight. And I just kind of let go and was like, I'm not going to make him get on board, but I'm also not going to give up this thing that's going to make my day really happy.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can get on board or not. The trains, I'm leaving. I am doing this today. And he's the kind of person that like you do that one day and he's like, oh fuck, okay, I get it.
I think that's so important. My husband and I were kind of just talking about this, like how sometimes in my message it's lost because for him, he's always been on board. And like you said, like you have one morning where you match his energy or you're just like, this is what we're doing. And if you're not there, then he's like, oh, I see. I need to step into this role or I need to do this. It's always been that way for us. And he's 100% on board and like, he's there. But I think that some people, especially in my comments, do not have partners that are that way. So when I say, I made that video that like blew up where I said match his energy with the 45-minute shit. Go take a 45-minute shit. Or I've made a joke like say, oh, when you go to work, do you need me to babysit for you? Can you leave me a list? Yeah, I'll totally do the laundry for you. Let me know how you want it done. Like if I were to make a single sarcastic comment like that about something bothering me to my husband, he would get it immediately and it would be fixed.
Yeah.
But I know that's not the case.
Well, and I think some of it is being honest about why we're doing it. Because for me, when I engage in something like matching their energy or stating these, when I do it so that they change, that's when I'm fighting a losing battle, because I don't actually, as great as he is, I don't have control over that. So I have to go into it with, I'm taking a 45-minute shit, not to teach him a lesson, but because I deserve to take a 45-minute shit. That way, no matter how he responds, and that was that energy of the day for me when I went to drive the car, was I'm not doing this resentful. I'm not doing this as a punishment. I'm not doing this so that he learns a lesson. I'm doing this because I want to do this today. I want to see this car and I want to sleep tonight. And I also don't want to be in charge of waking someone up in the morning when I've already told them what time we need to leave the house. This is what I'm going to do. And my partner can join me or they can get left behind. And my partner has always joined me. But it's not, these things aren't formulas on how to make your partner join you. It's just going to make it clear whether they're going to join you or not. And if they're not, you need to move on.
I think, you totally nailed it. I love that. Yeah. And everyone needs to take the space, go do your thing. Hopefully you have an awesome saint of a partner. Like you said, that's awesome.
One of the reasons why I think it's hard to talk about division of labor on TikTok is that because people always ask me, like, well, what do you do around your house and what does your husband do? And I famously will never answer the question, because having a workable division of labor, in my experience, it's a lot less about what's on the list and a lot more about you and your partner's ability to give each other the benefit of the doubt and to truly trust each other. I mean, my husband said one time, like, when I come home and the house is a disaster, I think to myself, they must have had either a really fun day or a really hard day. And like, that has nothing to do with how often he takes out the trash or how often, or who's on their list or what my list, right? Like, because the truth is, there are couples where the labor isn't necessarily equal, but there's enough trust and benefit of the doubt, and they're looking out for each other. I mean, my husband will be the first one to say, like, if I tell him we're talking at 3:00 and I'm like, yeah, I actually don't have a lot of work today, he will be the first one to go, sweet, you should take a nap.
Hell yeah. It's amazing.
And I wish there was a way to talk about that in a 60-second clip, right? Because at the end of the day, yes, the trash still needs to be taken out. So we need to address that. But sometimes the issue is everyone, it's you're married, everyone's kind of being shitty in the partnership and everyone's out for themselves, not trying to figure out how each person can look out for the other one.
Yeah. That's actually, I'm totally going to read that book. I think that's the other thing in the past couple of years that's really changed my understanding of myself and my relationship is time value. And my husband and I have 24 hours in a day, both of us, and his time is not more valuable than my time, and my time is not more valuable than his time. And it's finite. And you have to, like you said, you have to figure out how to meet your basic needs, have a job that pays the bills, and also have fulfillment. And so taking a nap, going on a walk, having friends. And what I really love is in this Fair Play book, she talks a lot about sitting down with your partner and making sure that you are aligned on your values. And so all of the things you're saying about how your husband is supporting you, it's because he values you and your wellness, and you value you and your wellness. And it sounds a lot like, the mom gatekeeping and the inability to rest and all that is not valuing your own time or valuing your own wellness. And I was a victim to that. My husband would gas me up, tell me to go out and do my thing. And I'd be like, no, I can't. No, no way. And I feel very similar to you, like totally at the end, like I just hitting a wall, total burnout. And I know other people out there are hitting the same wall, but maybe we can change that. Maybe.
Do you follow or read at all like the Gottman stuff on marriage? And
No.
so John Gottman is a marriage and family therapist, and the Gottmans, who are married and they're both marriage and family therapists, are one. The Gottman Institute is like the premier hub for like marriage and family therapy, and they did all of this research on like what makes good marriages, what makes happy marriages, what make lasting marriages, and they did like actual evidence-based studies, and they got so good that they could tell by meeting with a couple for like 30 minutes whether they were going to stay married or get divorced. And one of their sort of aha discoveries was the idea of turning towards and emotional bids, where they found that for every critical interaction you had with your spouse, it takes 7 like affectionate or positive interactions for that relationship to stay healthy, for it to not turn down the sort of the path of divorce eventually, and contempt and stonewalling and stuff like that. And they talk about, and there was actually Abraham Piper made a TikTok on it recently where, you say, hey, look at that bird. And if the partner says, what bird? I'm busy. Birds are stupid. That's called turning away. And then going, oh yeah, look at that. That's turning towards. And it doesn't have to do with like whether you like the bird, because like my husband would respond to that by going, mm-hmm. And then I'd go, you don't care, do you? He'd go, I don't care. But it would be an affectionate and warm way of engaging me while saying, I don't give a shit about birds. Casey, you're becoming like, you're becoming an old woman with the birds. And that to me is like also key to the division of labor conversation, because if you don't have underlying respect in your marriage, or you're not turning towards each other, that's going to erode that belief or trust that that person is looking out for you. And then when they sleep in on a day, instead of thinking, wow, they must have really needed the rest, you think, they're never going to help me again. They take advantage of me. They don't see how hard I'm working. They need to get their ass up. Right. And it's really been eye-opening to look at that stuff. And I'll tell you, like, it makes me so sad sometimes when I see women on TikTok videos of them and their partner or their boyfriend, where I saw one the other day and the boyfriend said, like, you look stupid doing that. And I was like, but he said it in such a way where he was like joking, and like nobody said anything about it in the comments. And I literally was like, man, I had forgotten that is how people think it's okay to interact. Like, my husband would burst into fucking flames before he told me that I looked stupid doing something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I did see that TikTok from Abraham. I sent it to my husband, and he responded. He said, I want to look at birds with you every day, which was very sweet.
So
but absolutely, like, every time I see those TikToks where someone's like dismissive or mean, and unfortunately, I think I made a couple of TikToks where I was like responding to people negatively maybe a couple of months ago. And so now I get tagged in a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of stopped responding because that's not what I want to put out there. But yeah, I love that. Like it's like attunement, if you're attuned to somebody, and you're, it goes with that matching of energy and aligning of values. And
There's a couple of
Um,
good questions
I
on there. Hold on. I'm sorry.
oh
I
yeah,
don't mean to
go
interrupt
for
you,
it.
but I didn't want to lose it. Okay. Someone said, how does one find a man like that? And then the other question that I thought was good, did your husband start out like that? Curious your thoughts.
Um, yeah, absolutely. Like for me, yeah, my husband has always been very like interested in what I'm interested or in, or wanting me to, encouraging me to go out and do things that I'm interested in. I will famously, like, he's really into pinball, and I kind of have a hard time playing pinball with him because instead of like the fast game that most people play when they aren't good at it, he has like a 30-minute for one ball. It takes a really long time because he's so good. Um, but I think it's what you're saying. It's like, even, or my gardening stuff, like, even if he doesn't really, it's not really his thing, or it's not really my thing. It's in a loving way. It's like, yeah, I'm absolutely going to go along with you on a walk down the river. You're going to know that I probably wouldn't pick to do this, but I love seeing you light up. We love seeing each other light up.
Yeah.
And like, it's the same way, like, think about the last time you saw your friends light up. Everybody loves to see their people they love, like, interested in stuff.
Yeah.
And I like
same. Like,
it.
yes, he was always like that. He was always like that. Um, have we, in our entire, like, almost 8 years of being together, there's been maybe 2 or 3 conversations where one or the other has had like a, whoa, that's behavior I will not tolerate. Maybe 2, right? Like, maybe I had one at one point, maybe he said something like that. And both times it was like a, okay, like, message read, that behavior will not be tolerated. And yeah, but like, yeah, just been good. How about this one? What are some green flags you noticed initially in your husband?
Um, for me, uh, this is a cute little thing. And you know what? I get a lot of like, I've been called ableist because of not being ADHD friendly, or like, because, I am critical of somebody giving someone else a list. But definitely there's some of those executive functioning things happening here. And one way that my husband has skirted around that is, when we first started dating, he has a note in his phone that he still has today, 12 years later, of like my favorite coffee, the stores I shop at, like little things that I would say, or like quotes. He's got my ring. He had my ring size written down from like one time we went to the mall. So he was paying attention and wanted me to know he was paying attention. And that was like week one.
I think that one of the first green flags that I ever saw in my husband was our first really big fight. And I don't remember what even the fight was, but it was bad. Like, we were both very angry. And there was zero cruelty. Nothing he said was intended to make me feel hurt. It was just him expressing being angry or being upset. And he goes, I'm going to go. I'll let you know if I'm going to call it. I will let you know when I am ready to talk again.
Wow.
And in that moment, I realized, oh my God, this is a man that is unwilling to wound me just because he's angry.
Wow.
Because he could have said, I'll let you know if I'm going to call. And he started to. And then he literally stopped himself and made the choice to be a different kind of man. And he has since that, like, he has been that man ever since. He has never made a jab. He has never been cruel or like biting. I mean, he's been angry. He's been frustrated. He's been, you know, sarcastic from time to time, but that was something that was really important to me, is like how somebody treats you when they're angry with you is more important than how they treat you when they're in love with you.
That's amazing. Did he, how did he get that way?
It's
Like,
interesting.
was he raised that way or therapy or what?
I think both. Like he definitely, when he got sober, like did a lot of therapy, developed like a pretty strong spirituality. Um, but I also think he was raised really well. And I think he is just a good person. All of us have done shitty things in our addiction, but I gotta say, like, I have seen people get sober that like continue to kind of be a shitty person. And I have seen people get sober that have become the kindest, most gentle souls ever. And I think it kind of has to do with like what they were working with to begin with. Like, addiction is
Yeah.
100% a mental disorder. And like, when you get it under control, you can either choose to work on yourself or not. And I just think he is a good catch.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I entered my addiction in bad condition. I exited my addiction in bad condition. Um, so I think somebody in your comments asked like if we've always been that way, and definitely not. My husband and I are totally different people than we were when we met. Um, I think both of us probably had a lot of green flags, but we are so much better now. And like, oh God, I've said and done some really mean things. Um, and both of us thankfully have grown together. And I think nowadays we'd be like him, where both of us in an argument can stop and be like,
Hmm.
okay. Or like we've learned the coping skills to connect. Now we learned that a good way to cut the tension in the middle of an argument is to make a joke. And so sometimes like one of us will make a joke and it won't land. It will have to be like, I intended to make a joke here to cut the tension because I am trying to de-escalate and connect to you.
Yeah.
And so we're doing like just the communication that we've developed over the years has really improved.
Well, one thing that you said that I think is huge for us too is you talked about friendship. And I didn't necessarily grow up childhood wise, but I grew up in my young adult life, like from 18 to 26, in Southern Christian evangelicalism, where everyone gets married very young. You only date to seriously consider if you're going to marry someone. And I think what I saw a lot was people marrying people that, if you took away the romance and the sexual attraction and how good it feels to be matched up, there wasn't really much underneath it. So they would get married and then, like, yeah, they made a good business arrangement or something. And then, like, when real life kicked in, like, at the end of the day, their spouse is not the person that they want to hang out with. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that that was so huge. Like, at the end of the day, my husband is like the person I want to hang out with. Um, and that to me has often been something that I've seen in relationships and reflected on, like, people who married because they seemed like that person would make a good husband or a good wife versus like, this person is my friend and I want to bone them.
And I feel like I come from maybe a very different, at least my friend group is very different, and like totally rejected the um, business arrangement aspect of it. And so was like all passion. And then you get into a functional relationship, and like we've already been to second weddings of friends, and like
Mm,
things have not worked out the way they wanted to because I think maybe similar to us, and thankfully we've grown and become excellent partners in domestic things. But a lot of times they're like, oh, even on this app, I see it all the time. Like, oh, I want the scraggly, mentally ill person. Like, that's who I'm lusting after. Yeah, but they are really hard to be married to. My husband is married to and one of them, like you got to have a little balance of both.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, also, like, I think that my husband is a person who is constantly having to challenge misogyny in himself because he is a white male. However, he is not someone who is openly misogynistic. He is not someone who is consciously misogynistic. He's not someone who was raised that way or believes that way. And so, like, he actually has the emotional capacity to see a woman as a friend and a whole person who's like cool to be around. And I think sometimes the things, like, especially growing up, the things that my brokenness was attracted to was that sort of macho man-esque, like, toxic, skinny, like, even to the, like, skinny drugette, like, was some stuff that was, like, at its core pretty misogynistic, who, like, at the end of the day, like, when the passion's gone, like, they're probably not going to be capable of being a friend.
Yeah. Yeah. The like stoicism and the emotionally unavailable.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
And I think, like, obviously like, couples can go the other way too, right? Like, you can be such good friends that you end up, like, kind of just being roommates. But, like, it's so much easier to, like, intentionally stoke the fires of passion when you're already friends than it is to try and build a friendship with someone who, like, maybe you don't actually want to be friends with or isn't capable of being friends and seeing you as a whole person.
Totally. And yeah, like if your values aren't aligned, like what you said, if you aren't going to like actively engage with that person in things, yeah, you're not going to have passion or friendship.
That's why, like, all of this stuff, I don't actually talk a ton about division of labor on my channel. And some of it is because, like, there are just so many layers. Like, for some people, it really is a conversation about, like, you need to do this and I need to do this. For other people, it's like deeper issues of trust. For other people, it's like, you're not, like, this person doesn't see you as a complete person, human being. Like, that's actually the problem right now. And, like, you can beg them to take their trash out all day long, but, like, they will never see you as a complete, full human being that they can engage in a egalitarian relationship with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody asked
a
question in here. What are your husband's thoughts on weaponized incompetence?
For me, oh man, what are my husband's thoughts on weaponized incompetence? I'm looking at him.
Can you explain that to me?
That's a pretty openized question. I don't know. That's too broad of a question.
I don't know that I've ever asked my husband that.
Yeah, he's aware that it's a thing. I talk about it all the time on here. I think that we talk about it at home a lot in the frame of expectations that the patriarchy and even like the American social structure of capitalism and how we prioritize our values. And we talk about it in broad strokes a lot.
She said,
but it's also kind of
like, would your husband call it out in a friend of theirs? Oh, mine would.
I don't know. I think he would.
But my husband always, like, that's also the kind of relationships he has with his friends. Like, they call each other and say, like, man, this thing's going on. Like, what do you think I should do? So like he has that spiritual permission in their life to be like, I think you should fucking nut up and like do what you need to do. Okay,
Yeah,
so like this comment, like I'm a stay-at-home mom and my significant other thinks his job is more important than mine. He helps with nothing. Like that to me isn't an issue of division of labor. That's an issue with like being a shitty human being.
yeah, I agree with you. And like to put it maybe gently, it's
Sorry, I was not very
it's
careful about your spouse. Sorry. Sorry,
it's
Christy.
values. He's not valuing your time if he is saying, I can't get to it. And that's, I'm not saying like you said, if you're home more and it works for you guys, that one person does more of it than the other person, that's totally different. Totally different. But just when you are expressing your concerns or I need space to do this or like, and they're telling you, absolutely not, I work and you are just at home doing this. There's a values thing and he's not valuing you as a person.
And I will say, like, we have had to work, I mean, much like me being a white woman, like I have to consciously unpack like white supremacy as a default in a lot of my beliefs. Like my husband has to unpack misogyny as a sort of an unconscious bias. But there's a difference between like, hey, I think we're acting out of this right now and like we need to get explicit about it and talk about it, and someone who will like come out and say like, no, I make the paycheck in this house and so you need to ... right? Like I'm not saying that like Michael hasn't ever done something that I've been like, that tells me that you somewhere underneath there maybe believe this, and like we need to say that explicitly because I know you would never actually agree with that, but like that's kind of what this is feeling like. And someone who says like, oh, like I make the whatever, because I also know that like I don't actually need permission to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can just go do it. Anything.
I'm glad you said that, because I think that's an important distinction too. Like in my relationship, I have 100% always been able to do whatever I want. But say like I can go out and I don't need to ask anybody for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that most people are in that situation. So it's like misogyny in ourselves too, and that like martyr thing that a lot of moms tend to do. And I think maybe that person who's commenting didn't see you earlier, but the like, just fucking do it. Just do it. Just go out and do the thing that you want to do. Make it work for you. Find the girlfriend you can do a childcare swap with them. I know it's hard during pandemic, but make the space for yourself. And if they aren't going to match that for you, if they aren't going to cheer you on for finding that space, they don't value you. Yeah.
And this, how do I bring how do I bring attention to this behavior without causing a heated convo? So it depends on what you mean by heated convo. Like if you're saying like, how do I bring this attention to someone in a way that isn't going to make them act volatile, like that is a problem in and of itself. Like you should never have a fear that your person is going to be volatile. But also like it's okay to have heated conversations. Like a conversation about not being respected in your home should probably be heated and you should be the one heated. Like be respectful, obviously, but like I'm that way. I wait way too long to bring things up with my spouse because I'm like, I don't want to bring it up when we're cross with each other and make it worse, but I don't want to ruin like a perfectly good evening. Like this is when like being good friends like kicks me in the ass because I'm like, oh, but I'm having so much fun. Like I just really want to be with you. And so it takes me a while to kind of stack up and be like, listen, this is something happening and we might fight about it. That's fine. But yeah, it's okay to fight. It's okay to fight.
Yeah. Especially when it affords you the space and time to be yourself. And that's the other thing is like we've had conversations. I just watched a Bluey episode where
I love
the
Bluey.
dad has he has to cancel he's not available to bring one of them somewhere, and so the mom has to cancel her watercolor class, and then I think Bingo has to cancel something that Bingo was doing too.
Yeah.
And they're a little bit upset, but like valuing going to work or being like, I have to work is also okay. You know,
Mhm.
we all have to pay our bills. We have to figure out, prioritize things, but just forgetting your needs, like coming home and sitting down on the couch and taking Saturday and Sunday off and allowing the other parent to just be the primary parent the whole weekend, not pick meals, not decide what extracurriculars you're going to do. Like
Mhm.
all of those things are labor, all of those things are work. And um, I mean, like my husband picks the meals on the weekend. He does just that. That alone is like, heck yeah, I hate picking meals and I do the meals on my own all week. It's great to have the weekend
Mhm.
off from that. He's valuing my mental space. So
So
he
I've
doesn't have
always,
to like do labor.
yeah, I've always done the meals in our family, like just always and forever, every single one. And if I were to ever say like you pick, he'd be like, okay, and then he would like get takeout because like he can't cook at all. But one of the things that I've noticed that my husband has done the entire time we've been married is that he will come home and say, so what do you want to do for dinner? Like, even though I'm the one that always cooks, I'm the one that decides, I'm the one that cleans the dish, like he has never said like what's for dinner. Like what's for,
Uh-huh.
not even casually, not even like, so what's for dinner? Like literally, and it's conscious. Like he
Yeah.
consciously, even though I have always been the one that makes dinner, um, he consciously puts it as, what do you want to do for dinner? Because if I say I'm not hungry, he'll go, okay, I'll just like figure it out for myself. Or I'll say, I didn't really plan anything. And he'll say, okay, you want me to pick something up? Or, oh, well, I'm not that hungry. Like, I don't know. It's just like it's a small thing. And I feel like it kind of reflects like his upbringing of like, even
Mm-hmm.
if like he just doesn't think he's entitled to that, to like me cooking everything, even though I do cook everything.
Yeah. Language is important. Um, and yeah, I love that. There's no assumption there.
Yeah.
And it hurts when somebody assumes that like, God, how many of us at work, it's just like assumed, it's assumed you're going to do this. It's assumed you'll get that done. You know, your plate is very full. No one wants to assume. It's the same at our house. It's always like, what is there anything you'd like to do today? Is there, and even like every Sunday we have it kind of built in that I will, like Sunday is my time to do what I want. Usually I go to my community garden. And it's just open every time. And I haven't been going lately because I'm not working and I have time during the week to myself. But it's always open. It's always there. Are you going to go to the garden today? Is there anything else you want to do? Like opening that door and having it there. I love it.
Um, when you made your video about going on a walk, the recent one with the fuck no audio,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
and I stitched it because like one of the things that I was thinking about was like, and I wish I would have worded it differently because it was like an on the moment process about me working out some of my internal guilt about getting a nanny and starting to work full time and all these sort of things. Um, because I also like I can't, like when people ask me what I do, like what do you do? And I'm like, oh, like I can't even come out and say like I do shit on the internet. Like that's what I refer to as my job. Like, so I'm still like getting over the like I've like kind of actually made a career out of doing internet stuff and like writing a book. Because I could just never be someone who'd be like, oh, I'm an influencer. Just feels weird. But so that was a moment for me where it was like, wait, I will be more likely to not look back and go, oh, I wish I would have spent it if I can get into a place where I'm not so fucking crispy fried. And I feel like I am a whole ass adult and I can engage, even if it's like less hours in the day, than if I were to not go and pursue this book deal or this, platform or whatever. Like if I were to not do that because I need to stay with them, like I'm going to stay crispy. But what was interesting was that a lot of people in the comments resonated with, but there's a ton of people that brought up like, well, this is a privilege. It's a privilege to have the, the money to go off and do what you want, the time to go off and do what you want. Single parents can't just leave their house and go take a walk. And that's why I kind of wish that I would have at least thought some more on how to word it. But I also, like, one of my very good friends is a coach and a therapist, and she's all about like pursuing your identity outside of motherhood. And she has like a whole thing on like, yes, it's easier when you have the privileges of a supportive spouse and the money, but it's not really about physically leaving your house or having childcare. And I was just curious what kind of feedback you get on your videos like that, or thoughts that you have about that.
I've gotten a few of the similar things. I don't know. It's so impossible. I think a lot of what I focus on talking about and trying to figure out for myself is how to build a community that doesn't look like just a couple. Because I don't think that we can we can't meet our needs just within this tiny structure. We've all discovered that in the last 2 years in a pandemic. 2 is not enough adults for a family. And so I'm trying to cultivate community through, meeting people on the internet. I have this whole group of other parents who I respond to their Instagram stories, or I'll drop stuff off on their porches if they're local, or shipping them things. And like finding ways that I can meet my own needs on times when my husband's traveling or he works nights. So the earplugs, the loop earplugs saving me. When I have just the 2-year-old with me going on walks where I have one headphone in so that I'm like in my own world a little bit. So it's hard because, we can only speak from our own perspective and our understanding of our little worlds. But, yeah, I think that it needs to be a social shift. We need to have paid time off. We need to have the supports, the legitimate supports in place for people, because single parenthood shouldn't kill you. And it does. It totally does.
Yeah. And I think if I had to do it again, there's just like a one, or maybe I should just make a follow-up one, is like, I dislike, and I worried that I got on boarded on this, but like, I dislike when people talk about self-care as this like prescriptive thing that you need to feel guilty about if you're not doing it, because then you have people that don't have those supports that are like, great, one more thing to feel fucking guilty about, right? And I don't think you do that. But I was just thinking, like, I never want it to sound like, if you're not doing this, you're not being a good mom, because good moms go. But like you said, like it's not. That's why it can't be an individual self-help conversation by itself. Like it has to be like a systemic conversation about, how can we create a village if we don't have one? Because also, like, some people have family and their family is toxic as shit and they cannot leave their kids with their family.
And that's kind of how we are. We don't, I have my mom who is great. But we don't have a net. We've had to kind of build it, and it's it's really intentional how we've done it. I was going to say something, but I forgot.
I mean, that needs to be right before the pandemic started, I got with a couple of new friends, and we started a moms group for the city of Houston. And that was our goal. And literally our tagline was, join the village, find your tribe. Like, this is going to be how we create the village. And then COVID happened and the whole thing fell apart. And also one of the women that I started with turned out to be nuts. But we were like, let's figure it out, guys. And now I have all these friends that are moving home now that they're pregnant with their second kid because they're like, I can't, this is not doable. But I mean, I feel like that's the book that someone needs to write, or the podcast someone needs to do, is like, how do we, because I feel like as a mom, particularly a stay-at-home mom, it was so hard because I've had friends my whole life. I've been popular. I make friends easily, but I also only know how to make friends via a shared institution. Like, you go to school with people and you meet friends at school.
Mm-hmm.
You are on the YMCA soccer team and you meet a friend on the soccer team. You go to college, you go to work. Like, you are put into environments where other people are there and you have to be with each other. And sometimes, and it's like the pressure is off because some of them you'll click with and you'll get to take that beyond whatever obligation you're all involved in. And some people you won't click with, and that's fine. They'll just be your work, whatever. But then I think a lot of us, when we become stay-at-home moms, we don't have that place, and we're trying to make friends, and we don't have the, like, there's so much pressure. And I literally felt like I was dating again. Like, I'd get someone's number and I'd be like, well, I don't know if she likes me. Does she like me? Was she just being nice? Like, and then you do a play date and you sit there and talk about nothing for an hour and you think, now I need to go have a lobotomy because I hate having small talk with people. I have no idea if we like each other or if we click. Like, this is miserable.
Yeah.
Not to mention that's the place where you would trust somebody to watch your child.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot. And my husband and I were just brainstorming yesterday about this, but something that came up in how we show up is like women's circles. And it's such a white supremacy thing to think that we can be alone all the time, or even just like the structure of our friendships and relationships. Meanwhile, you listen to people of color, you listen to indigenous families and the way that they deal with conflict, the way that they sit together in trauma, the way that they overcome things. And I want to participate. I want to be a part of a community, and I want to sit in circle and talk with people about like this. I want to be able to connect over things that are hard and things that we've grown from. And I want to be vulnerable and honest, and I want to grow and challenge each other and challenge myself. And I want to do all of these things. And my first instinct, and I think it's a wrong instinct. My first instinct is I want to facilitate this, but maybe I'm not the person to do that, but maybe I can help. Maybe I can be the back burner facilitator. Maybe I can be the catalyst to join it. I can be present there. But like, I want to attend. I want to go to a retreat. I want to primal scream. I want to do all of those things. And how can we spread that? How can we normalize that? How can we normalize circles of women who may not necessarily get along on all things, but are in it on this? Maybe the institution is parenthood. And we bond over that, and we share our children together, and we have aunties and uncles who are realizing that the climate is failing and don't want to have kids. And like, I think we can cultivate that.
And I think that sometimes just elevating it to the place where people feel validated that it's not a luxury. Like, there are going to be people that like make big life decisions because of, you know what, there's no village here. And I think there might be people that aren't able to make those kind of big decisions, but a lot of people who just need permission that, like, no, that's a valid thing. Like, that's a valid thing to change your whole life for.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we're going through that. We have an excellent community here. Our house is small and the taxes are high, but we have a strong community, and we can deal with stepping on each other in the bathroom if it means that we have that.
Well, okay, one thing that I thought about because somebody asked about husbands or like when you meet them or whatever, is I will say that one thing, and it was a pastor of all people that said this, that I wrote on my mirror. This is when I was single, that I think really helped, like having boundaries around dating relationships, was he said, God, I know I'm going to butcher it, but it was like, oh, he was talking to people who were not married. And he said, if you think you're lonely now, there is no loneliness that compares to the loneliness of being in a marriage where you feel lonely or where you are alone. And I mean, he said it more eloquently than that, but I remember him saying, like, the loneliness of being alone in a marriage is far more lonely than just being single. And that helped me when I would date someone and I would think, because I was one of those people that always just wanted to be partnered. I knew that that's something that I wanted. And when it's like, oh, I really like this person, I want this to work, and there's just so many red flags, to kind of say, like, well, you know what? Maybe I will be alone forever, but the loneliness of being alone forever is far preferable to the loneliness of being in a lonely marriage.
Yeah, I like that. I have people over here telling me they've heard the same thing. Very helpful. But I think that's so applicable to so many situations. Being somebody who just recently left a job, and a job at a good job that paid well, that is in a good area and with resources and things like that. But constantly feeling like I had to make myself small and I couldn't bring things up. I couldn't, there were projects that I wanted to take on and ambitions that I had, and they were not seen. I wasn't being seen. And I think that, like, I am constantly needing to remind myself that that is a valid reason to leave a situation if you are not being seen and heard and not being made to feel like you can be seen and heard.
That reminds me, like, speaking of the laziness book, and I can't remember who I saw say this, but she was talking about how we need to stop worrying so much about teaching our kids how, like, not to quit things, and actually we need to be focusing on teaching our kids how to quit things, because we're so ingrained to believe that quitting is a moral failure, that you should always see everything through, that you should, like, and not to say that there aren't obviously good things about perseverance and sticking something out, but that, like, actually it's I think they were talking about how their parents, like, intentionally taught them how to quit, and that served them more in adulthood than learning how to persevere ever did. And she talked about, like, they were so intentional about it. Like, if we started an extracurricular and I didn't want to do it, we stopped. If we were doing, like,
wow.
And it really stuck with me because we feel so guilty about quitting something when we're not thriving.
Yeah. And recently, I left this job and I was talking to a friend who recently left hers. And I was like, what was the straw? I talked to my therapist about it too. And I wish that it hadn't gotten to the point, but it was basically like my mental health and the health, like my physical health was really, really bad. And it had, I feel like a lot of times people are ignoring the red flags, and like, your mental health is worth it. If you aren't thriving, you can quit. And I also, to your point earlier, like, I also have to realize that it is a privilege to feel like I can leave. And that is part of this system that actively in my neighborhood I'm trying to work on, so that nobody ever has to feel like there is no option. And I hear that in my comments a lot too, of women who are like, I would leave, but I can't. I'm trapped. And a lot of these things that we're saying, like being in a marriage where you're not being seen, or being in a workplace where you're not being seen, sometimes you're trapped.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't have a solution to that, but I don't want to say it out loud, that's also valid.
I don't know who Bliss Talk is angry at, you or me, but I can't get any clarification. Do we have the same comments?
I don't think so.
Oh.
I think I have something else. Someone's mad at me.
I can't tell. They're saying it on my side.
Oh. No one's mad over here. Someone's saying quitting was the best thing. Quitting is very important sometimes. I mean, someone says they were never allowed to quit. I quit a lot of things. Sometimes I feel like that was detrimental. But my mom always quit for me. And I wish I had learned how to quit respectfully.
Oh, no, it's me. You made posts before saying people who have hobbies aren't real adults. I'm sorry, my friend. I think we have had a miscommunication. I don't think that, and I don't think I've ever said that. I think I've said probably the opposite of that. I had a TikTok one time where I said we can all stop trying to find our passion.
Oh.
It's fine. You don't have to have passions. You made posts before saying people who have hobbies aren't real adults. Real adults don't have hobbies. Bliss talking. Oh gosh, hold on, I'm moving fast.
I've got someone over here saying, quit a job. I'm a teacher and I'm looking for a reason to be done. Whitney, if you need a reason, it's not going to get better in your time there. If you're miserable, leave if you can. Casey, it has been so fun talking with you.
Yes.